All right, Tim Walz indicates Minnesota is ready for war against the government. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. What happened today in Minneapolis will soon become something far uglier if the leaders of that state continue to stand in open defiance of the sovereignty of this country, law and order, and the federal government and federal immigration. Today on the south side of Minneapolis, a 37-year-old woman ginned up by Democrats who call ICE the Gestapo decided to block an ICE operation by parking her SUV right across a roadway. She'd been doing this all day long. As officers approached, she floored it with an officer right in front of her. That officer opened fire, 3 shots, at least 1 hit. That SUV smashing into other parked cars down the street. That woman died right there at the scene. A complete and total waste of her life. All based off of ridiculous rhetoric on sensible immigration controls in a sovereign, very wealthy nation. So tonight, there are some interesting facts that you need to know. First off, attacks on ICE are up more than 1,000% in recent months. These guys do this job all day long, and all they face is protest and attacks and car rammings. Secretary Noem says ICE saw 4 vehicle ramming incidents today. This was just one of 4 today. As the political party that treasonously dumped millions of illegals into our sovereign nation now scream fascism at the process of removing them. And they are ginning up chaos and violence everywhere against ICE. Hundreds of vehicle rammings have happened since this has started, since the process of removing illegal immigrants in this country has started. So if you're wondering why shots had to be fired, that's why shots had to be fired. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Here was the mayor of Minneapolis today in response to what I just showed you.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. And now somebody is dead. That's on you.
No, it's on you. And that man belongs in jail. A number of people in the state and local government in Minnesota belong in prison for an array of reasons that we have seen recently. Minnesota's had a spotlight on it. That state is terrible. But turning the people of your state into weapons against the federal government is sedition. And this is everywhere. It's been normalized by a Democrat Party that attempted to gain perpetual power in this country by importing millions and millions of illegal voters. That was the plan. Because they have no good plan for the American people, it doesn't align with their agenda. Their agenda destroys your life. They needed a new voter base. They brought it in. Now they're furious as their scam has been halted and the damage that they've done to this country is being corrected. So now they're screaming fascism all day long and weaponizing senseless people into actions like we saw today, and far worse, by the way. Jacob Frey, the governor Tim Walz, the attorney general Keith Ellison, they are enemies of the state. Tim Walz today indicated that he's going to call up the Minnesota National Guard to protect his people from the federal government and from the sensible work of immigration and customs enforcement, which has millions of illegal immigrants that it needs to deport if we are to remain a sovereign, wealthy nation, which is not what the left wants. Walz literally threatening to fight the federal government with his own National Guard as it does the job of immigration control. Take a listen.
We've never been at war with our federal government. My primary responsibility as governor is the protection of the people of Minnesota, and you can be assured whether it's the State Patrol or whether it's the National Guard, their deployment is there to protect Minnesotans from whatever it is. If it's an act of nature, if it's a global pandemic, or in this case, if it is a rogue federal agent.
It's no longer enough to indoctrinate your citizens to fight federal immigration officers. You now want the National Guard to come in and assist as well. Can you imagine where this could go? This is what happens when we allow idiots to run our government. And these idiots are everywhere in our government. All they care about is political wins. That's their only calculation. They don't care about the quality of life of their people. They don't care about the state of their state and their cities. They don't care about any of that. Jacob Fry, these people are career politicians. They've never done anything impressive. All they've done is pander for votes. This is not what the founders wanted. This is the opposite of it. We have idiots running large subsections of our society. And this is the result. And they have no idea what they're even saying. At what point does the administration start arresting the leadership in this state and start arresting the people that have vilified our federal agents to the point that all day long they work and get attacked? This is commonplace until the shots were fired. A vehicle ramming is happening multiple times a day to our ICE agents, so much so it doesn't make even any kind of news. Think about how crazy that is. I mean, this is a really ugly moment. And at what point do you wrangle this back under control? At some point in the last 5-7 years, the Democrat Party decided that we can't have a sovereign nation anymore. We're just not going to do that. We're not. We have no more borders. We have the wealthiest country in the world, and tonight, we are borderless from their perspective. That's what they're saying. You can't enforce immigration laws in this country any longer. You can't. They're allowed to dump millions and millions of people into this country. You have to pay for them. And if anybody starts deporting them, they are fascists. They are Nazis. Tonight, the left is enraged after this shooting, as you would expect. It's all over X. It's all over the media, trying to convince you that you should be enraged as well, that a young, innocent 37-year-old woman who was just trying to help was blown away by an ICE officer. That's the rhetoric that you're going to hear from most of the media on this story. Keep this in mind. The officer that opened fire and killed this woman, that officer, who's at some point he's going to be doxxed, we're going to figure out who he is, and they're going to try and destroy his life. That officer has such a dangerous job that he's actually been dragged by another violent agitator's car before, just in the last few months. So he's standing in front of a huge SUV with a lunatic woman who guns the gas pedal, and he opens fire because he sees this almost every single day. He sees somebody with a car trying to run him over with it in defiance of immigration law. That's what the rhetoric has done in this country. Our reporter Joe Moeller is in Minneapolis tonight, and he's at the scene. Joe, quickly tell us, what does it look like tonight? I know there's quite a large crowd.
Yeah, Rob, I just stepped away from it to get some service to do this live hit with you. And I'd say there's probably almost 2,000 people out here for what they are calling a vigil for what happened this morning. I mean, we're just south of downtown Minneapolis in this neighborhood where this all happened. But the streets were closed for much of the day. Here's some video from earlier. I was actually able to shoot on my phone. You can see some of the chaos that erupted. There was, protesters picking up snow and ice and chucking it at those agents as they were trying to leave this demonstration, and you can just see the agents who were trying to leave had no choice but to deploy that tear gas. And that happened for about a few minutes, actually, and then a lot of the investigators and agents left after they were done with that investigation. But tonight, thousands of people are out here for this, what they're calling a vigil.
And as we look at that video, and Joe, thank you so much. We can pull that video back up. Just keep running it. I mean, this is what we're talking about. This is every day in the life of an ICE officer. Every single day as they try to deport the most dangerous people they've started deporting first out of our country, this is what they face from mostly white liberals in this country that have been ginned up into psychosis by the rhetoric from the Democrat Party. And with that, we want to bring in Senator Ted Cruz to join us now from the Capitol tonight. And, sir, it's good to have you here. Let's start with, I want to just play this for you from Kristi Noem, the secretary, the DHS secretary. Take a listen to this.
The very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well.
6 months ago, this same officer that opened fire today was dragged by a car. That's how dangerous their job is.
Well, listen, and you are right that this is the direct result of the inflamed rhetoric that Democrats have been directing at ICE and Border Patrol and law enforcement for years. We've seen now the left-wing mayor of Minneapolis say to ICE, get the F out of town, although he did not abbreviate the word. No. We've seen Tim Waltz, the now disgraced Democrat governor of Minnesota, say that the state of Minnesota is at war with the federal government. You know what? When you use that kind of overheated rhetoric, when you call ICE officers Nazis or the Gestapo, which Democrats have done over and over and over again, you end up seeing what we're seeing all across the country, which is acts of violence directed at law enforcement. I was in Dallas just after a deranged gunman opened fire at ICE officers there because he had been listening to the deranged left-wing rhetoric. And sadly now, what we're seeing real time, what you just aired, is Democrats in Minnesota and across the country are cheering on for people to riot. They are cheering on for a replay of the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots. They want shops burned. They want violence to occur. And the normalization of political violence, it is dangerous and it is wrong.
Yeah, make no mistake that the administration, the Walz administration, the Fry administration, they are elated to have this in their city tonight. This is as excited as they have been in months, because this is the perfect distraction away from the Somali fraud scandal, which is going to potentially take them all down. This puts all the eyes somewhere else. It gives them a song to sing. It gives them a cry out. It gives them this ridiculous narrative that they've created. It gives them something to victimhood, everything they could possibly want out of this, they're going to get. I mean, this is what it is. ICE are tyrants. They are Nazis. They're terrorizing our city, and we're here to protect you.
Well, listen, I'm grateful for ICE. I'm grateful for Border Patrol and law enforcement. They're keeping our communities safer. Your family's safer. My family is safer. The men and women of ICE risk their life every day to keep us safer. And they're right now out there. They're arresting criminal illegal aliens. They're arresting gangbangers and murderers and rapists and child molesters. And this woman, we will find out more facts. There will be an investigation. It will be based on the actual facts. But I'll tell you, for anyone, if you are stopped by law enforcement and you disregard the instructions of law enforcement and you drive off in a massive SUV and you endanger the lives of law enforcement, it is a predictable consequence that deadly force may follow from that. That is an exceptionally bad idea. If you are detained by anyone in law enforcement, to ignore their instructions and to instead drive your vehicle directly at them. And tragically, the result of this was a loss of life, which I'm sure this woman, if she could replay it and do it again, would have handled it differently, but that's not an option anymore.
I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, as far as the rhetoric around all of this, I don't understand how anybody could vote for the Democrat Party at this point. If you want to have a lawless society that has no borders and has no immigration law, with this much wealth, this country will dissolve very quickly if we go the route that they want to take us down. And these people they've turned sensible immigration they've vilified it. I mean, 15 years ago, Democrats and Republicans agreed that you needed to have immigration and customs enforcement, and now not only do they not agree on it, they think it's fascism to have that.
And look, Democrats now think it's good politics to get on a plane and fly to El Salvador and have margaritas with a gangbanger and human trafficker. Their agenda is vote Democrat and you'll get more illegal immigrants, more gangbangers, more murderers, more rapists, more child molesters. And listen, part of this is Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah. They hate Donald Trump so much that it's just driven them to the crazy extreme. It's not even the wrong side of 80-20 issues. It's the wrong side of 90-10 issues. I don't know who looks at America and says, you know what we need? We need more MS-13 members in America. We need more violent criminals. That's where the Democrat Party is right now. You know, Rob, there is a reason in 2024, in my reelect, that in Texas, I carried Hispanics statewide by 6 points. At the same time, President Trump also carried Hispanics in the state of Texas. If you look at the Rio Grande Valley, which has been bright blue for over 100 years, in 2024, we flipped the valley. President Trump carried the valley. I carried the valley. And the reason is, with Latino populations, we want our families safe. We don't want criminals terrorizing our children. And yet Democrats think that's a great agenda. We're going to bring more violent criminals into your neighborhood.
It's so true. And when you look at the numbers in that last election, it told the story that even immigrants don't want to live in a lawless, borderless society. I have 10 seconds left. I'm looking at thousands of people in Minneapolis. Is this George Floyd round two? What happens?
I pray that it's not. My prayers are for the safety of the people in Minneapolis, and I hope that we don't see violence. I will say there are a lot of Democrats, I think, tonight who are cheering on violence. That is sick and wrong, and violence is wrong regardless of whether I agree with your politics or not. Violence is never the answer.
They'd love to see it go. They'd love to see it go nuts, and then they'd love to bail them out too. Senator Ted Cruz, thank you so much, sir. Good to see you.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, so today, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, indicated that he would call up his state's National Guard to combat federal immigration agents protecting the sovereignty of our country. Walz threatening a treasonous act against the federal government, and that's not the only highly illegal act that he has been accused of today. This is where we were going to start the show before we saw what happened in Minneapolis today. A House oversight hearing on fraud in Minnesota, the Somali fraud, was going to be the big story today. A state rep explaining in that hearing that her governor, Tim Walz, and his administration have been threatening state employees to keep their mouths shut as they uncovered explosive amounts of Somali fraud because, of course, Somalians are keeping Tim Walz in power, stealing billions from the government, from government programs for child care, for autism, other virtuous needs. Take a listen to this moment from the hearing.
In your experience, are their claims credible or are they politically motivated against Walz?
They're completely credible, not politically motivated.
Can you quickly give us one example of the retaliation these folks have been facing?
The most severe ones was that they would be fired with cause, so they couldn't have unemployment insurance, that they would be blacklisted from all state agencies.
So that's an allegation that's coming through a state rep from whistleblowers alleging that not only did state leaders know, Tim Walz knew about what was going on with all of that fraud, but he was threatening people to keep their mouths shut, threatening to ruin their lives. That becomes criminal. Chairman James Comer of the House Oversight Committee joins us now. It was his hearing today. Good to have you, sir. Let's start right there with the governor. He's had a big day. Talk about what you learned today in this hearing.
Well, remember, those state lawmakers who testified, they testified under oath. If anything they said was not correct, then they committed perjury. So they knew what the rules were. They said under oath that people have been warning Governor Waltz and Attorney General Ellison for years, not months, not weeks, years, that this fraud has been ongoing, that the response from the governor when state employees and other credible whistleblowers would come forward with their concern about this massive amount of fraud, that Waltz would retaliate against them. That is a crime. And what we did today was we proved that there are billions of dollars of fraud that's been committed with the social programs in Minnesota. And this is the important part, Tim Waltz and Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, both knew and both retaliated against anyone who was brave enough in the Minnesota state government to come forward and proclaim that fraud.
That's clearly criminal, right? I mean, not only are you complicit in the embezzling of potentially billions of dollars of federal tax dollars, but then you're threatening anybody that might call it out. I mean, that sounds like a very serious crime.
It's a very serious crime, and I think what we did today is a great step forward in criminal referrals. But the difference in this investigation and other investigations that I've led is the cabinets are on the ground. The Trump administration's on the ground in Minnesota. You've got the Department of Homeland Security there, obviously, as well as the Department of Agriculture on the food fraud. The HUD agencies are there to try to calculate all the fraud and get the fraudsters. I think we're finally going to see a lot of people in handcuffs. But what this hearing was about today was to make sure that we got people on the record under oath that are in the know. These are some of the most powerful people in the state of Minnesota that said, in fact, Governor Waltz knew about the fraud and retaliated against anyone who would proclaim fraud. And then they went further and said the media wouldn't cover it, the liberal media in Minnesota, because they feared that that would be considered racist to say anything bad about the massive Somali population. And that's why they did it.
Yeah.
That's why that Tim Waltz and Keith Ellison turned a blind eye, because of the votes, because of the Somali population is a significant voting bloc for the Democrat Party in Minnesota.
Yeah. Affable, he comes off, Tim Walz is just this, kind of a everyday, everyman kind of idiot. And at the end of the day, he's still a politician, and he's got some dirt under his fingernails. I think that was proven today in your hearing. That is something else. Congressman James Comer, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Continue to follow what's happening in Minneapolis here after the break. Plus, the president intends to stop huge corporations from buying up all of our houses and renting them back to us. That'll be a very popular plan. Senator Rand Paul after the break.
Hi, Mom. I can't wait for you to hear well again, so I won't have to scream to tell you that I love you.
Now tell me if you can hear this. Hi, Mom.
It's not just your hearing. For us, it's your life. That's why we created the Miracle Ear Way, offering unlimited care, including risk-free trials and free servicing to keep you connected with your loved ones at all times. Book a free test. Call 1-800-339-5811.
Doctors' Preferred Liver Defense is doctor-developed to support your natural detox function with clinically validated, triple-tested key ingredients to energize and renew your liver. Find Liver Defense in the supplement aisle at Walmart. Doctors' Preferred. Better science, better results.
Hungry Root is here, and I needed it because my fridge is super empty.
It's so easy to just whip together a quick, healthy meal.
Head to hungryroot.com for healthy groceries and simple recipes. Plus, get free veggies for life.
Well, the season of giving is over. Ho, ho, ho. Welcome to the season of paying for it. That not-so-wonderful time of the year when millions of Americans who went overboard for the holidays open up their credit card statements, scream in terror, and resolve to save a few bucks in the new year. If that sounds like you, why not switch to Pure Talk's Saver plan? Unlimited talk, text, and 3 gigs of high-speed data for just $20 a month. Think of it as the gift of savings, from you to you, with a little help from Pure Talk.
All right, welcome back. We are tracking Minneapolis. You can see on the screen there in the bottom corner, large crowds gathering in the city. This is the same city that launched the George Floyd riots, of course. And after what we saw today, we'll see what comes next. We're following that story and a lot more tonight. All right, Senator Rand Paul joins us tonight. Sir, good to have you back on. I want to start in Minneapolis. Obviously, an ICE officer shooting and killing a woman this afternoon after she accelerated towards him, trying to flee after blocking an ICE operation. Wanted to get your perspective on what we saw today.
I haven't seen the images of it yet. I've been busy on the floor today. We've had a big, long debate over the War Powers Act. But I'll take a look at it, but it's just hard to formulate an opinion because I haven't seen the images yet.
As far as the situation in Minnesota and the vilification of our ICE agents, I mean, these are federal officers that have faced like an 1,100% increase in violence against them since they've started the job of deporting the millions of people that were let into this country over the last 4 years. And you have immediate reaction from the leaders in that state who are all of the same political persuasion, which is that ICE is evil, and they're trying to, I think, gin up a huge protest in response to this. You've got the mayor of Minneapolis saying that ICE needs to get the F out of his city. How ridiculous is that in your mind?
Well, these are the same Democrat officials that looked the other way while the Somali immigrants stole $9 billion. So, yeah, I would expect the same. And look, there are a lot of good people who've come to our country, a lot of good people that are first-generation Americans, and I think that's great, but they shouldn't be here on welfare. I've introduced legislation to end all welfare for the refugee program. I don't think it should be any. It doesn't mean I'm against refugees, but if you come here, you should have a sponsor, and you work. If you can't find a job, they help you, and if eventually you don't work, you leave, you go back home, you go back where you came from. But I think this is a huge problem. And you can imagine if there's $9 billion worth of fraud in Minnesota, how much refugee and immigrant and illegal immigrant problem do you think there is in California or in New York City?
Yeah.
So I think this is the tip of the iceberg. And I think we're going to find more fraud than people have ever imagined. And really, fraud needs to be a crime that you're deported for. If you've committed fraud and you're on the dole and illegally on the dole and illegally taking money, you ought to be sent back.
Yeah, and I think what we're finding out is that Minnesota, which has become the epicenter of this story, the rot in that state, and just having that one party rule it for long enough for it to become this corrupt and this broken is dismay to a lot of people. I don't think people can really comprehend it. And then you see what happened today. You see the reaction from Tim Walz and from Jacob Fry, and you just say, what state is this? It's unrecognizable to I think to the larger country that we live in, and to most people that live here that are generally sensible about what kind of country they want to live in. I want to move on to some other big news. We got a lot of topics to hit with you. Home prices have skyrocketed since COVID, doubling, tripling in some places. The president announcing he's taken steps to ban large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. He's calling on Congress to codify this. This is going to be something that I think is going to be very popular with the American people. He declared people live in homes, not corporations. We've done some of the math here. It could be in the millions. I've found at least hundreds of thousands of single-family homes in this country are owned by these large companies that just buy them up, as many as they can find. They buy up entire subdivisions, and then they just rent them back to the American people. Home ownership, I think, is critical to this society, to the strength of our society. People need to feel like they own a piece of this so that they want to take care of their country and help it prosper. What are your thoughts?
I think there's a couple reasons why home prices have exploded. A lot of it's supply and demand.
Yeah.
How many houses do you have and what is the demand? Some of it's the value of the dollar. You know, the value of the dollar's been shrinking. Through the Biden 4 years, we lost 20 to 25% of the purchasing power. So 25% of the increase in home prices is loss of the value of the dollar because of the debt and the way the Federal Reserve finances it. The reason I don't immediately jump on any kind of bandwagon to ban ownership is that sometimes when larger corporations own things, prices actually come down. I'll give you an example. Historically, you know, your local real estate agent would make 5-6%. Once we started having some corporate ownership and people started saying, oh, we don't need this in between or this middleman, it was bid down to 3%. And then you started having some home ownership go with even less than that. So I don't immediately think big is bad or that corporations are bad, but I do think that prices are way out of sight. We need to do something about it. But I think it has more to do with the loss of the value of the dollar than anything else.
Yeah, I just would. Now that's the $1 million question. I think for most people is that we've seen if the price of a house has doubled in the last 5 years and the wage has maybe gone up 5-10%, you know, and that's actually somewhat impressive.
Right.
How do you solve a problem like this?
I think you're exactly right. The value of the dollar, some of it, that's related to our debt. But another thing it's related to is what happens when you have like rent control and you have price control.
Yeah.
So like in New York City, they have rent control, and you're like, oh, this is great. I get my apartment for $500, and you walk in and it looks like a hellhole. Looks like a bomb went off in there. You're like, how come the owner, the tenant, the guy that owns it, the big man, the slumlord, how come he isn't making it better? It's like, because you only let him charge $500 a month. Yeah. If it were $2,000 a month, or $4,000 a month, guess what? You'd have a better apartment, and you know what? They would build more apartments. But if you tell the people, and sometimes this is big corporate America, that they can't raise rents. Yeah. So I am worried about legislation that's feel good, but that if you limit how much a price can or who can own a house, perhaps what you end up doing is these controls make prices even more expensive.
Yeah, where are homes the most expensive? California, New York, and what do they have? They have hyper-regulation. You can't build anything in California. In New York, it's nearly impossible and highly regulated as well. That's the biggest problem for sure in these major markets. I want to talk Venezuela today. We seized yet another Venezuelan oil tanker. This one had been tracked for quite a while. This is just some video of the operation that we saw early Saturday morning. You've been vocally opposed to the Maduro extraction. The president says it's in some way about drugs, but also it's about shoving nefarious powers like China, Iran, and Russia out of our immediate neighborhood. which I think I can appreciate. I think and you're looking at, obviously, the Venezuelan people certainly appreciate that. Give us your perspective on what we're doing in Venezuela right now. We're obviously picking a pretty big fight here, and we just took another tanker today.
You know, I'm happy to see Maduro gone. I wrote a book called The Case Against Socialism. In the opening chapters, we talk about a young girl who's part of a gang, and her turf is basically the dumpsters outside of restaurants to get food. So I have no love lost for socialism. In fact, I may be one of the greatest critics of socialism. So I'm glad he's gone. But you have to realize he's now being replaced by his vice president, who's also a hardcore socialist. So I wonder whether or not that those in Venezuela that are supportive of America, they're happy America got rid of Maduro for them. I wonder how happy they will be 6 months from now if there's still an America involved, still in America doling out oil profits to them, but it's going to the socialist government of Venezuela. So Venezuela's been choosing socialists since the 1970s. I hope they will choose better, and I really think there needs to be an opposition, and I hope that'll be part of this.
It seems that the president has this new leader, the former vice president, under his thumb, and she's clearly messaged that she will capitulate. I think we've seen that, and I think part of it is that they're pushing that there will be an election. I think that's a big piece of this, because I don't think Marco Rubio is going to let them just get on with continuing to be socialists. That's not his agenda at all.
If your husband or brother or wife's imprisoned by Maduro and is still in prison, you're still going to be unhappy, particularly with the same government. So I hope for the best. Look, I want freedom, I want democracy, but above all else, I want capitalism for Venezuela so they can live a better life. But I do worry about this. And there's also another issue, which is separate from whether or not you think Maduro was terrible. He was terrible. But the separate issue is whether or not we go to war in America at the will of one person, or we go the way the Constitution intended, and that is that war is initiated or declared by Congress. I'm in the latter camp. I'm a strict constitutionalist, and while I agree with the result here, I don't agree with the process. Well, when you bomb all of their defenses in a capital, and then you send in armed forces to remove their president, that sure sounds like a war to most people.
Yeah, well, it ended quickly, though. It was a 3-hour, whatever you would call it. They call it an extraction to bring a criminal.
Yeah, I think there'll be less opposition to it because it was successful and because it's been short-lived. But in order probably to pressure the remaining socialist government that's still in place, there's going to have to be a continued blockade for a long period of time. So will the American people be happy with the expense of a blockade after 3 years, after 5 years, whatever it takes? We'll see over time. We'll see. You know, things are expensive. We probably dropped, a couple $100 million worth of bombs on Caracas. That sounds like more to me.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting perspective. Hey, happy birthday to Senator Rand Paul, and we appreciate you coming on. I hope this wasn't your present, but it's good to see you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, we're going back to Minneapolis and the gaslighting from the leadership of that state. That's next.
Hey, John Hamm, you still coming to my dog's birthday party?
I have to sell my car.
Well, just sell it to Carvana.
Carvana?
Isn't that your car?
Okay, fine, I sold it to Carvana. Thank you.
So you'll come?
What, are we gonna walk? Sell your car to Carvana today.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. With trillions of dollars vanishing from the stock portfolios of retiring Americans, many hardworking people I speak with are concerned about the holdings in their IRAs. But I have good news for you. Our team at Swiss America can show you how easy it is to own gold in your IRA. You see, even with economic turmoil all around us, gold continues to not only be a safe haven, but is also increasing to all-time highs. The volatility of markets has created a lot of undue stress for people. Wouldn't you like that peace of mind that diversifying into metals can provide? For over 40 years, Swiss America has helped people just like you own precious metals in your IRAs. So don't miss this opportunity. Call or text our team at the number on your screen to receive a free copy of our Gold IRA brochure today.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, the 91-year-old formulator of Immuno 150, an incredible nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it. Now, Immuno 150 is different because it contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 other nutrients. Dr. Linus Pauling, known for vitamin C, was instrumental in convincing me to get into the mineral business in 1983. He said the world is sick due to a lack of minerals in topsoil. He said the body needs 60 minerals, but the average food and supplement has no more than 12. That's the reason for Immuno 150. Since its inception, it's had a powerful impact on the lives of thousands of people who could not get any help from various supplements they took or their doctor. Now I suggest you try Immuno 150 to see what 70 minerals, CoQ10, and 80 nutrients can do for you. Look at the videos on our website. Millions have. Now consider placing an order for Immuno 150 online or call our toll-free number. I know you'll be glad you did.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories before our sale ends.
This is the one who makes sparks fly. Getting it done takes the right material, experience, and the right partner. The professional-grade products you need. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
A new year brings new threats, and Cyberman's ready for every one of them. While hackers plot their next move, Cyberman's already there, protecting families, businesses, and governments before danger can strike. This year, protect what matters most with easy-to-use award-winning protection. With PCmatic, you get American-made protection that's faster, smarter, and stronger. Start 2026 with confidence. Visit PCmatic.com today.
We've been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV. And today that recklessness cost someone their life.
That, my friends, is the definition of a gaslight, if you didn't know. These people have created such a ridiculous environment in this country with their rhetoric around common sense immigration, and then they come out and have the audacity to say that this is the fault of immigration and customs enforcement and the administration, that the process of removing the millions of people that they dumped into your country is why what happened today happened. Quite rich. Ren McEachern used to run the FBI's International Corruption Unit. Jennie Taer is an immigration reporter for the Daily Wire, and both join us tonight. And good to have you both here. I want to get your reaction from both of you guys. Ren, starting with you, to what we just heard from Tim Walz, what we've heard all day from the leaders of Minnesota.
Well, this is the seeds they sow, right? I mean, to have the mayor and the governor create this culture demonizing ICE and the law enforcement activities they're doing, the men and women doing their job, enforcing the laws, is insane. I can't imagine this scenario playing out, and it's inevitable that this happened today because they've created a culture where it's okay to throw rocks, to chase, and to try to disrupt law enforcement doing their job, and you get situations like this. They get what they totally deserve this. I've never seen such bombastic language, talking about trying to quell things. You'd think they would have learned a lesson from years ago from the Floyd riots, but apparently not. They want to double down. It seems insane to me.
They like it. I swear they like it. Jennie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is just one example of so many that have happened across the country of assaults on ICE officers. We're seeing this play out with death threats being an exponential increase, all-time high of those assaults, vehicle rammings. I mean, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said today that there were 3 such rammings that occurred in Minneapolis alone. That should be a reason to raise the alarm bells about what's going on. And we've seen these threats really materialize beyond that into worse situations. In Texas, there was a shooting where a man who ended up deceased after the shooting, he turned the gun on himself, but he was intending to shoot ICE officers. He killed 2 detainees in a detention center. We had these Antifa agitators who were luring ICE agents out of another facility nearby on the 4th of July by setting off fireworks and then shooting at those officers and injured a local police officer. So these are real threats that are happening.
Yeah, the woman that died today was a pawn for their agenda. They send these people out, they indoctrinate, brainwash them, send them out there to fight against this sensible immigration policy because that immigration policy is terrible for their politics, and they want to keep these people in the country. And so those are the pawns, and now she's dead, and if it's anybody's fault, it's the people that are blaming the other side on this. Good to have you both here. Thanks so much. Got to leave it there. Coming up, Trump's UN Ambassador Michael Waltz on Venezuela, Greenland, and Iran. All next.
The future of real estate is here. Real estate tokenization turns property ownership into digital tokens on the blockchain, allowing assets to be divided, traded, and managed with ease. Through fractional ownership, stop trading stocks, start trading skyscrapers. For the first time, you can buy, sell, and trade ownership in income-producing real estate as easily as a share of Apple stock. Your portfolio's next power play is here. TheInvestorsPool.com.
WSOP presents the NFL Poker Experience. Rep your team. Compete in exciting NFL tournaments and win exclusive NFL Poker Championship rings. Download the WSOP free-to-play app for a chance to win $1,000 towards your favorite team merchandise.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Muddy paws, dirty shoes, endless cleaning? Your floors never seem to stay clean. Now there's a simple solution. Meet Muddy Mat, the ultra-absorbent microfiber mat that traps dirt instantly. Engineered with thousands of advanced ultra-soft microfibers that are 5 times more absorbent than ordinary doormats. Muddy Mat doesn't just catch dirt, it locks it in. Whether it's mud, snow, sand, or water, every step on your new Muddy Mat leaves your floors spotless. And its reinforced rubber backing keeps it firmly in place. No more slipping or sliding. Perfect for your entryway, kitchen, bathroom, or even under your pet's food bowl, Muddy Mat absorbs up to 5 times more water. And when it's time for a cleanup, just toss it in the washing machine and it comes out looking as good as new.
Dog parents, this is a must-have.
My floors have never been so clean. I mean, both Ruby and Blue came in covered in mud, and this anti-mud mat left their paws sparkling.
I've got muddy mats all over the house. I even use one as a bath mat. It feels so good under my feet. It's so soft. Non-slip backing makes it safe too.
With multiple dogs, I've always struggled with having dirty paws on the floor, but with this mat, I can finally stop stressing out about it because there are no prints anywhere.
It's so soft and squishy. I've even found my puppy sleeping on the mat instead of his bed. They work so well, I bought 3 more so I could put them all over my house.
You just place the Muddy Mat in front of the door and you'll save up so much time cleaning the floors. Go get one. Thank me later.
Imagine the relief of coming home to clean floors every day. Call the number on the screen or visit trymuddymat.com or simply scan the QR code right now to claim an incredible 70% off and get your free Muddy Mat today. But hurry, this exclusive offer is available only for a limited time. Once they are gone, they are gone. Don't let dirt dictate your day. Join thousands of satisfied customers who have already transformed their homes with Muddy Mat. Act now. Clean floors, happy home.
Call 1-800-505-4572.
I wish I could just watch live sports at home for a great price.
Choose and customize your channel lineup, or pause and watch for free. Sling lets you do that. Base package required.
A lot of international news to talk about today as well. Big news day. The U.S. military seizing 2 more oil tankers with ties to Venezuela today. The first, a Russian flagged ship named Bella 1 in the North Atlantic. U.S. military chasing that vessel for weeks after it escaped their blockade. The Russian military was in the area as U.S. forces boarded the ship, according to reports. That was nervous there for a second. And the second, another sanctioned tanker in the Caribbean, coming after the president announced that Venezuela is going to be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of their very dirty oil to the United States. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, stating that Venezuelan oil does give the U.S. massive leverage. Take a look.
They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. This is tremendous leverage. We are exercising it in a positive way.
Michael Waltz is the ambassador to the UN, and he joins us tonight. And, sir, it's good to have you back on, Mr. Ambassador. I want to start with, obviously, you're very connected to the whole world, and you know, ambassador to the UN. How is the world digesting the fact that we are so aggressively going after nations like Venezuela and Iran and Russia? It's such a big change for this country from recent years.
Oh, it absolutely is, and it really depends on who you ask. You know, the friends of Maduro, the friends of Venezuela, were quite upset at the action. I should say Venezuela under Maduro, but so many others, Argentina, Panama, which was liberated from Manuel Noriega in 1989. Good conservative countries like El Salvador under Bukele. Freedom-loving countries like Italy and others under Giorgia Meloni cheered and applauded President Trump showing the leadership that he did. Because at the end of the day, as I pointed out at the Security Council, we have fewer drugs, fewer thugs, fewer migrants. By the way, Venezuela is the largest refugee crisis in the world, larger than even Syria under Maduro, with 8 million refugees. That's not even counting the gangs like Tren de Aragua that he was pumping into our country. And so at the end of the day, the Western Hemisphere, led by the United States and the American people, will be stronger, safer, and more prosperous.
It's interesting. I mean, I love the idea of, I don't like that they have a foothold just to our south. I mean, Venezuela is very close to Florida. I mean, it's not far from our country. And I think that a lot of the people that hate us the most love having a nice friend that close. So I understand the motive. I want to get to two more countries before I let you go. Greenland.
Sure.
Are we buying Greenland?
Well, that's the president's intent, and in fact, past presidents
What's it cost?
Made offers for Greenland. You know, look, we have a long history. At the end of the day, the Danish government subsidizes Greenland to the tune of over $500 million a year. It's a huge drain on their economy, and look, no one can argue that they've invested the defense resources that are needed. And so that everyone understands what this is really about is the Arctic is a new conflict zone with the retreating ice up there. Shipping lanes, merchant ships can now go through the famous Northwest Passage. You have oil and gas and critical minerals being exposed. The Chinese have pushed massive fishing fleets up there to hit those resources, which impact the United States, Canada, and even native populations. And the last piece is space in even any type of threat. If there are launches of missiles from China, Russia against the United States, they don't come east-west, they come over the top. Over the North Pole. So many of our sensors and defensive mechanisms are up there. It has to be defended. President Trump knows that, and he's going to take appropriate action.
It's such an interesting moment. I've literally got 20 seconds left, but I do want to just talk about Iran for 1 second if we can. There's a lot of paranoia. The Ayatollah is very nervous. They have serious unrest inside of Iran. The people are rising up, and I think there's a belief that the president of the United States is somebody that doesn't mess around. He said, don't kill the protesters, let them do what they do. He's not a guy to toy with on this.
Yeah, that's right. As Secretary Rubio said, if you didn't know, now you know. And they should listen to him. He means what he says. And what's different this time from the previous protests is this is coming from the merchant class. This is about President Trump, the results of President Trump's maximum pressure campaign. The currency is tanking. Their foreign reserves are tanking. Unlike under President Obama, the Iranian economy is tanking because of their obsession with terrorism and chasing a nuke. So this is coming from the inside, and we support the Iranian people.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else. Good catching up with you, Ambassador Michael Waltz. Good to see you.
Thank you. Freedom's in the air under President Trump. Thanks so much.
Amen to that. All right. Mom Donnie's tenant czar crying like a baby after being called out on her hypocrisy. It's a good one, and it's next.
Get the lights back. Okay. All good? He's breathing. Okay.
When I saw that Ethan was not breathing, I determined that I needed to use something to remove the obstruction from his airway.
It's very important for every household to have a life vest.
Everyone should have one in their home. Anything can happen at any moment.
I want my friends and family and people that I serve to know that we have this device to potentially save lives.
Protect your family. Go to lifehack.net.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
She's been there for you through everything. And now you're learning this next thing together. We get it. Find a caregiver who does too. When it's not you, it's care.com.
I really love Balance of Nature.
There's so many vegetables and so many fruits.
I love everything about it.
It's just such a phenomenal product. So, got to keep doing it.
Lock in 50% off for 1 year.
The darkness of bipolar depression made me feel like I was losing interest in the things I love. Then I found a chance to let in the light.
Discover Capilita. Unlike some medicines that only treat bipolar 1, Capilita is proven to deliver significant symptom relief from both bipolar 1 and 2 depression. And in clinical trials, movement disorders and weight gain were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Capilita is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, and dry mouth. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor how Capilita can help you let in the light. Find savings at Capilita.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Owning gold in your retirement portfolio provides significant tax benefits. And at Orion Metal Exchange, our clients get the advantage of a dedicated gold IRA department, and they'll continue to serve you free of charge beyond your initial purchase. Get a free copy of our Gold IRA Advantage, our new report that outlines the big benefits of owning physical gold for retirement.
Go to OrionReports.com or call 888-350-2067.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. You know, Democrats hated this Somali fraud hearing that they had on Capitol Hill today. They got a nice distraction in Minneapolis away from it. But during that hearing, they were looking for any way to change the subject they could possibly find, because Americans are realizing that all the money you send to the big government that they dream so much of is just lit on fire. Democrat Stephen Lynch decided to change the subject today by screaming about the newly named Trump Kennedy Center. Take a listen.
It is shameful. It is a case of stolen valor for this president to put his name above the name of John F. Kennedy. That is a fraud being perpetrated on this country right now. And if we're really interested in rooting out fraud, how about starting right there?
Well, the Kennedy Center was what? Grinnell told us it was like collapsing. I mean, the roof was leaking. Everything was falling apart. Nobody was maintaining it. Trump fixed that. And he also turned it away from being a left-wing LGBTQ arts center, which is also what it was turning into. That only really entertained about half the country, probably about a third of the country, really. So maybe his name does belong up there, now that you think about it. Kennedy would probably not mind it so much either. And finally, we talked this week about the self-loathing white female liberal communist Sia Weaver, the newly appointed director of the city office to protect tenants for Mayor Mamdani. She's going to be terrorizing landlords in this city as if they're not terrorized enough. Weaver has called to seize private property, blasted home ownership as a weapon of white supremacy. Oh, but wait till you get this. You knew it was coming. She's now being hammered over some serious hypocrisy. Reporters asking about her mom's $1.6 million home in Nashville, Tennessee that mom owns. Weaver can't take the heat. She comes out of her house today, or apartment today in New York, and starts crying and runs from reporters. We have a city that is run by children, and we'll be right back.
It all started in 2022 when the Biden administration weaponized the U.S. dollar and imposed sanctions upon Russia. Central banks around the globe moved out of dollar-denominated assets and into gold. Jamie Dimon said gold could easily go to $5,000 or $10,000 an ounce. Gold recently surpassed its inflation-adjusted all-time high. Silver's inflation-adjusted all-time high is $209 an ounce. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 1-800-778-4156.
Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer nationwide, home of the no-fee for life IRA. See how easy it is to protect your IRA with physical gold and silver.
Call now, 1-800-778-4156.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
Doctor's Preferred Liver Defense is doctor developed to support your natural detox function with clinically validated, triple tested key ingredients to energize and renew your liver. Find Liver Defense in the supplement aisle at Walmart. Doctor's Preferred. Better science, better results.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
This is the story of the one. The one knows the unexpected can put everything on the line. But with a teammate like Granger, she's confident that she will always win the day. Call, click, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
I tell you what, Rob Finnerty, Tim Walz is all over the news cycle, and it's mostly purely for his full-blown incompetence. I mean, that hearing today at the House, and then you have what happened in Minneapolis today with the ICE shooting. Minnesota's a mess.
Yeah, and what's happening in Minnesota and Minneapolis tonight is exactly what the left wants to happen. The protests, the riots, because we know they don't protest in Minneapolis. The riots that are happening, the protests that are happening tonight, this is exactly what they want.
Exactly right.
Rob Schmitt, we'll do it tomorrow, my friend. Thank you.
We will. Good to see you.